absolutely crushed it, so nice job.
Thank you, appreciate it. This is the main goal.
Yeah.
Try not to let the genetics down.
No. Your father would be very proud.
Thank you.
Awesome job.
You're watching a very special edition of the Blue Angel Phantoms podcast. On this episode, we're joined by Harley Hall, who was recently invited by the Blue Angels to participate in a VIP flight to honor his father, Captain Harley H. Hall, who served as the team's flight leader in 1970 and 1971 and was the last naval aviator shot down during the Vietnam War. Harley opens up about the internal pressures he placed on himself to have a good flight and represent both his father's legacy and the teams that served with him. Harley also offers insight into how he managed the high G-forces during his flight and his appreciation for his pilot, Lieutenant Commander Zimmerman, who tested his limits. Before closing out, Harley shares a very personal moment of reflection that he experienced in the hours that followed his flight. All this and more, so please join me in welcoming Harley Hall to the podcast. All right, welcome back to the Blue Angel Phantoms podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Notoff, and my guest is 2 days removed from a VIP flight with the Blue Angels at Point Mugu. Harley Hall, it is great seeing you again, my friend.
Good seeing you, Ryan. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, 2 days removed. How are you feeling? Are you sore?
Yeah, so, a lot of the process we can definitely dive into. So basically from my hips down, I am extremely sore. It feels like I was deadlifting for like 6 hours straight, where my wife found it pretty hilarious watching me try to go down the stairs and whatnot, because I'm just kind of like a walking mess, but I'm starting to come out of it now. But it was really interesting. The day of the flight, nothing at all. In fact, I don't even think I went to bed till 12 that night. So I was up from 5 to 12. And then the next day I started feeling it in my butt, and then it slowly moved into my thighs. My calves have been fine, but yeah, it definitely has an effect. It's definitely a workout.
Gotcha. Well, I'm looking forward to diving in about your ride. Before we do that, I want to talk about your dad just a little bit, as is part of the reason for this ride. But your dad, for people that don't know, Captain Harley H. Hall, was the boss of the Blue Angels in 1970 and 1971, that beautiful F4 Phantom era that we celebrate so much, and beloved by all that served with him for his leadership, his charisma, and he just had that all-around cool factor. And like so many Blue Angels do, your dad went back to the fleet after his time on the Blue Angels, and it was during the conflict in Vietnam, went back to combat. Sadly, the last day of Vietnam, January 27th, 1973, your dad was the last naval aviator shot down over Vietnam and has since not been returned. Obviously, over the years, the Blue Angels have not forgotten your father's sacrifice and his legacy, and they've honored it in a variety of different ways, and that continued this weekend at Point Mugu by offering you a ride in the Blue Angels, specifically a backseat ride number 7. So what does it mean to you, and what does it mean to your family for the Blue Angels to honor your father in such a beautiful way?
Well, naturally, it is an extreme honor. I'm quite aware of how rare the VIP rides are, for one, and to be offered one is just beyond amazing. In retrospect of my father, that's really how I treated the ride. Of course, I was there and I was in the airplane, but for me, I really wanted to represent him, and I really wanted to represent the Navy, and I really wanted to represent the 70-71 team. And that was my main goal going into this, was really having a good representation of what that was, and for everybody that's been involved. The association alone has been incredible. I've had through the years multiple times where they have definitely made recognition to them and kind of kept the story alive and the memory alive and the respect, and that really means quite a bit, to say the least, to our family. Naturally, the loss was large, but that comes with the job, is kind of how we look at it. And yeah, I think overall it was just probably the right time and the right place for it on the 50th anniversary. It's a little tough for me as far as, every time I have a birthday, it's kind of a remembrance of, the loss of my father. And that's just, kind of the way that it goes. But overall, there's a tremendous amount of positivity that has come out of it, and the legacy that has lived on, and the motivation, I think, that has been passed on to future generations and whatnot has just been spectacular. So for me, I couldn't be happier. I couldn't be happier with them giving me that opportunity, but like you said, more so for what it represented, which was my father and the Navy and the type of people that are in the Navy and how well they hold themselves and really create that image for future generations. That's just something that I've experienced in my childhood, and it was quite prevalent in this last flight, that everybody you encounter is some of the nicest people you're ever going to meet, and two, some of the most mentally strong people you're going to ever meet. I've never run across somebody that did not hold both of those qualities, and I thought that was very important as a leadership skill, to be able to demonstrate that you could actually be the strongest leader and one of the nicest people that somebody could meet. So I thought that was exceptional, that has just not changed through my 50 years of interacting with the Navy and all the personnel.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's beautiful. And but you didn't know that this ride was coming your way, as you kind of referenced, and so you got a phone call that you weren't expecting. It's a bit comical. So if you don't mind recounting that story for this audience, I think they're going to love it.
Yeah, so actually my beautiful wife, doing what she does best, which is kindness, somehow managed to get this initiated. She definitely had a large part, and from there was multiple individuals that definitely played a part, from my dad's team all the way down to Captain Tom Frosh, George Dom. There was very pivotal people that played a part, but it was very interesting in the sense that I think I was making us dinner, and my wife said, I'm going to go get the mail, which I thought that was a little weird because she always puts that one on me. So I was like, I got kind of a break from the mail run tonight. So I was cooking dinner, and she came in and she was talking to somebody, and literally the way it sounded, I was like, oh no, she got kind of hook line by a salesman, was my initial thought. And she was talking to this person, and I was just kind of doing my thing. I had just come off of work. And then she said, well, here, let me let you talk to my husband. And I kind of gave her a look like, oh, I don't need the used car salesman thing right now. And anyways, the voice on the other line said, is this Harley Hall? And I very bluntly said, yes, who is this? And the commander said, this is the commander of the Blue Angels, and kind of revealed everything that was going to transpire. And ultimately, like I usually don't end up short for words, but I definitely kind of was. I felt a little bad that I, obviously didn't know it was him, but it was a surprise. And they basically just revealed the flight. I think the one thing that stood out was I definitely told them, this is something that I personally would never have asked for. I've always been very humble. I think it's very important to be humble when it comes to, my dad's history. And I never have ever wanted to put myself forward beyond that to kind of, I don't know how you would say it, create like some type of barrier between that and the Navy and whatnot. So I've always taken a definite backseat. And so I basically told him, I would never have asked for something like this. And he said, nope, that's exactly what we heard about you. And this is what's going to go down. And we really look forward to having you out there and the experience, and the XO's right behind me. And that's kind of how it transpired. And then it basically took me about 24 hours to really start sinking in of what was going to transpire, and that, I better kind of get my, what together pretty fast here for the experience. So it definitely was a shock. I'm very detail oriented, so I would imagine it was very hard for my wife to maneuver around me without me figuring out the aspects of all the planning and whatnot. So, and I know that you obviously had a little word about it too. So it was definitely a good experience. It was dumbfounding, to say the least, when I received that phone call. And I definitely wasn't a used car salesman.
Well, I had nothing to do with it. I had heard about it and I was told to keep my mouth shut. And I did that. So I was happy I was able to, But you mentioned your attention to detail. So let's talk about your prep. I mean, did you start going to the gym, or how did you prep for this?
So this is what's really unique about it, and nobody actually knows this thus far, because it did worry me, and I wanted to see how it would play out. So naturally, when I got the phone call, that was one thing. And the next day I started YouTubing to see how much information I could find, and more so how to start these G compressions and really try to get ahead of the game. And one of the first things I started was by really doing stomach crunches on the ground. That started immediately. And then, weird enough, for the first time, I ended up getting COVID. And that really two things went through my head. Was like, oh my, I've made it this long and I finally got COVID. And two, is this going to interfere with the flight? But more so, I knew I had enough time to test negative, which I did in about 8 days. But I kept thinking, well, I almost feel like it's a blessing, to be getting it now, because it's almost ensuring that we're not going to have this complication, come flight time. And Erica followed me up with the COVID too, about 2 days later. The only thing I will say is, if anybody's had COVID, there's probably about 2 weeks until I felt like I really had all my energy back. And then there was kind of this slight lingering, where I would breathe out every now and then and get like a single cough. And I kept thinking, I really hope this isn't going to affect the flight, So it was a little worrisome, but, it all worked out. And I would say 2 to 3 weeks before the flight, like I was pretty good to go. As far as exercises, whatnot, I didn't really do that much. I know that, I hit about 600 to 700 golf balls a week. So I hit about 6 days a week, and full power, hitter on that. And there's definitely a lot of walking involved in my life. I didn't go back to the gym. I more was just before the golf, I used to go to the gym 6 days a week, and then I switched over and started doing the golf. So preparation wise, it was really for me trying to understand how they are able to push off the effects of the G's. I thought that's what was going to help me the most. So it was really a lot of studying when it came down to that, and trying to understand that aspect, which funny enough, I would sit on my couch and like, okay, so you're supposed to be tensing up your lower body. And what you don't realize is, without being, completely strapped in, to the seat and having that pressure to hold you. Because, I can get more into it later, but when you're in flight, their advice to me was you need to be trying to stand up in the seat, and you're not going to go anywhere because of those straps. But basically, when we would go into G's, and it didn't matter if he said it was going to be low G's or high. I definitely didn't want to pass out, so I gave it my all every time. And basically, I was trying to stand up in that seat and basically rip the seat off the rivets was the feeling. So it's almost like being stuck in a full dip for anywhere from 5 to 10 seconds. You're trying to have your stomach pushed out, like somebody's going to punch you in the stomach, so you don't have an effect on that. And then ultimately, the other advice was to keep your upper body relaxed, but keep your neck engaged as well. So it was interesting. I told the boss when I got out of the plane, the same thing. Hey, I was at home trying to do this stuff, not knowing that the seat support is pretty much the key to that exercise. So if anybody was ever gonna, I think I told Erica, if anybody was ever gonna try to practice that move, to get some type of apparatus that curls around your shoulders that you could stand up into and put as much pressure against that to get that effect.
Well, let's talk about the night before. Did you sleep or nerves, or, you seem pretty relaxed in the video I've seen of you thus far.
Yeah. So, for me, okay, well, let me go ahead and answer your question. So I think I got 4 hours of sleep, but it wasn't more of a nervous thing. I was just just kind of energized, I would put, and I definitely am kind of thinking about the process. And for me, it was very important going into this to be able to perform well. And this is kind of part of what it's like to have a father that I had. Is, to me, there can be some pressures of trying to live up to a name, and you definitely have to manage that, to not let that kind of take over your life. But there is that aspect. So for me, I was excited for the flight, but a lot of it was I really want to perform well. I don't want to throw up, and I don't want to pass out in the flight. I want to make all the teams proud, my dad's team proud, everybody that's involved. I want to see what I personally have, if I can withstand this flight, see if it would have carried on. There was a bunch of kind of questions that were going to be answered, and I was hoping that they would all end up on the positive side. So really it was just kind of a mental preparation, and a lot of that too was trying to keep myself in a calm perspective, and not let the nerves kind of grab a hold of you, or, definitely excited to fly in the plane. But, to me, there was a mission to it too. And that's kind of the purpose of what we're talking about too, is it wasn't just about me. It was about the association and the memory and everybody involved. So for me personally, I felt like there was a part that I needed to fulfill to kind of round off this whole dedication and experience.
Yeah, well, spoiler, when people see the video, you killed it. But Bill Switzer was on your dad's team in 1971 in the briefing with you.
Oh, yeah, it was incredible to have Bill there. I've told him multiple times. Strange enough, they've been spending a ton of time in California, right down in LA. I'm in Santa Barbara, so you're talking about maybe an hour's difference, and they spend a lot of time with their grandchildren. So it actually just worked out really great having him there. And I've had a lot of interactions with Bill, and we definitely clicked together. The way I describe him, or I described him to my wife. I said, I think Bill's a lot like me, just without the anger issues. And my wife kind of gets a kick out of that. But we operate, it seems like, under like the same mind thought and just kind of how we view the world. So it was a really good matchup to have him there. And he definitely had stories that blew their mind when I was when I was in the room and they were going through everything. And Bill told a funny story of, there was a maneuver he was first doing when he got into the blues, and when he would get at the top, he would convulse for a little bit, and he would tell him, man, I don't know what's going on with that, but it goes away. And I guess it kept happening. And finally he brought it up to one of the team members, and they literally said, oh, we were wondering when you were going to mention that. But this kind of this blew their mind in the room. They were like, that's not normal, and that shouldn't be. So, long story short, like, love Bill, great experience, great story. Just really nice to have him there. Bill's the type that kept thanking me for having him there, where I told him, the reality, Bill, is it's completely the other way around. Like, I'm here as a representation, but, he obviously has put his time in, his effort, done everything, amazing career. And really the pleasure was all mine to have him there. And it really meant a lot to me.
That's great. Yeah, Bill is fantastic. And that story you told about the convulsing there, he shared on a video here. So if you haven't seen and are not aware of Bill Switzer's career, flew with the Blue Angels from 1971 to 1972, and full of good stories. But so then you walk out to the jet. Did you know that they were going to have your name on the side of the jet? Because that's pretty darn special to see the name Harley Hall on a Blue Angel jet in 2023.
Yeah, I did not. And it was mind blowing, but it wasn't like a shock that they would do that, because, that is the experience when you're dealing with the Blue Angels, is that's just the type of people that they are, that, that's what goes from exceptional to beyond exceptional, is they're looking at everything and everything they can do for individuals. But yeah, it definitely did blow my mind. It's just one thing after the other. The other thing that blew my mind, that really kind of was a reality check, is right before we went out there, Lieutenant Commander Zimmerman comes in the room, the pilot, and I think my wife described it best after the experience. I go, man, did you see the build on him? I mean, he looked like a post-college Olympic wrestler, like the way he was built. Like, I was like, I need to step my game up just looking at him. But Erica was like, he literally looked like Captain America. So it really started right there. And in the room, he came up and, went through, we can do whatever you want, and kind of went through. And for me, really, and this was there before we ever stepped on base, was to make sure that it was going to be a good experience for him as well. That was very important to me. So I told him, no, we should do what we're going to do up there, and we'll see how it goes. and I'll get more into that later, but he definitely lived up to that comment, which was great.
280, 300. Harley, you ready for it? I'm ready. All right, here we go. Ready, hit it. Here we go. All right. Oh, man. Bombing up. Rolling. Sweet. Well, now I see what they mean about the G's. Yeah, that was 6.2. Yeah, that's incredible.
Why don't we get into the flight then? I saw the videos you sent me. I mean, right off the bat, when you get a ride with the Blue Angels, you go right for it, a high performance climb, usually hit about 5 or 6 G's on that initial takeoff. Your reaction in all these videos is, I've never seen anyone that calm in a Blue Angel that's doing G's like that. And if anything, you were just excited, but I would love to hear your experience going through that.
So yeah, right from takeoff, if you watch the video, we'll definitely get it out there. He says, are you ready for some military power? And that's why I'm laughing, is it's freaking raw. And if you think like taking off in one of these buses is an experience, like it is. I think we were up in the air in probably less than like 5 seconds, maybe faster. So you're feeling like that acceleration is already just amazing. So I'm laughing like, oh my, I feel like the Coyote with the rocket strapped to his back at that point. And I really love Lieutenant Commander Zimmerman, because he took it all like to a good level. Like that initial climb, I think, was supposed to be about 4.5. We took off, and that was a wake-up call. Like that, you'll hear me say at the top, like nobody would ever understand unless you experienced it. The amount of G's that, like what that feels like. I've never have like come close to feeling anything like that on my body, like in my life. Like it was completely dumbfounding. And then we get to the top, and I'm still kind of laughing about it. Like, oh my God, that's freaking insane. And it's like, how many G's did we do there? Oh, we did 6.2. And I remember mentally going, well, I didn't pass out, so that's a good sign. And then it just kind of went from there.
You guys went out and flew over the ocean. What do you talk about between, because it's not like you hop right into maneuvers, right? You fly for a little bit before you really get into it.
Well, okay, so this goes back to, just how much I really liked him. It wasn't like that. So we got up there, and I think I asked him a question and then realized that the air traffic was talking to him, because you can slightly hear that in the background. So we're just leveled off. And I think he says, give me 1 second. I just got to deal with this. I could hear they're telling him kind of some ranges and whatnot. And then he went right into it. He's like, okay, Harley, so we're going to start out with a 2G pull, nothing to do here. And we went into that. And then you would stop. Okay, you ready, Harley? And this is what I told my wife, was there was rarely any breaks. We definitely were able to accomplish so much in that time, where, your brakes, okay, we're going to do 4 Gs. Okay, you ready to bring it up to 6 Gs? We're going to do 6 Gs. You got a couple seconds. Okay, you ready? We're going to bring it up to this many Gs. And, it physically, I think a couple people have asked me, what was it like, Harley? I literally told them it was probably one of the most physical things I've ever done in my life. That was the perfect description of doing these G's. That's really what I learned the most about it. Is I think a lot of people view, I can do that, and I could, as long as I could be upside down, then yeah, I could do it. No. It comes down to, if you physically can handle these G's and be able to sustain your energy to be able to fly these planes, is a workout in its own.
Harley, you ready for it? Uh-huh. All right, here we go. Ready, hit it. Nice legs. Breath. Here comes the initial pull. Keep it going. Keep that breath.
Check for you at your 11 o'clock miles, 1,974 Mario Skyhawk.
Almost done. All right, there we are.
Also with
Rolling out, you can ease those legs. How you doing after that one? Good. A little bit tiring. That was a long one, huh? Yeah, it's good though.
The other interesting thing, I told you a lot about, trying to stand up out of the seat. Like I gave that my all, like every time. I think that's how I basically survived it and did not pass out. There was one point where he was like, okay, we're going to do a higher G, get ready. And you can feel he'll put in afterburner, and if you watch the video, you can see sometimes my helmet will go back. That's not me. That's the acceleration of these planes. And he hit a G. It's the only time where instead of me kind of holding my breath and then grabbing breaths, I'm just in the video. And we come out of this after about 7 seconds. And I asked him, I go, how many G's was that? He goes, that was 7.5. That's pretty good. But, during that G, you could feel it coming in. Like you start to get fogged down. And I remember thinking, oh no, this is like, I don't know if I'm going to make this one. And I got it here, and then I was able to like hold it there and enough to get out of this G pull, and was lucky enough to be able to do the 7.5 Gs.
Yeah, and then in addition to the Gs, I mean, you're also rolling, right? And so there's maneuvers where it's not necessarily G, but it's more about the roll. How did you do with that type of upside down profile as far as, your inner ear? Sounds like you did really well based on the video I saw.
I that's never really messed with me too much, but you have to comprehend, like there's a little bit of exhaustion going on off of basically what I told you of, like, you're squeezing so hard that it's such a workout. So then when you start doing all these turns, you're also fatigued. And it wasn't the turns that got, started to get to me. Like there was definitely like a level of some nausea that was going on. But for me, it was like, you just freaking deal with it. Like, don't let that get you, man. Like, I had 2 goals up there to not get sick and to not pass out. And so there definitely was an element of trying to manage that a little bit. But, I've never had a problem like being upside down, doing anything like that. Like I've been on a lot of fishing boats where like the whole boat is throwing up and sick, and I'm just leaning against the rail kind of laughing. Like it does, like I don't really get seasick based off of the boats that I've been on. I haven't been up in Alaska where you're gonna get sick, but I've just always had like a little bit of ability or notice like that just doesn't seem to affect me that much. So to me, those were kind of the easier parts to me. But like I said, there definitely was kind of like trying to manage a little bit of nausea, because you would do some of these things and it would increase a little, and then you would come out of that, and then you would kind of manage it down, and then we would start on another thing. And there was just a part where that was in play a little bit, but I was able to come out of that, which was really, really good. When they send you up, they put two bags on, or a bag on each of your thighs under the strap. And they're, if you get sick, they're right here for your hand. I remember just looking down at those, like, don't use those. Like, don't let that happen. When I returned and they opened the canopy, Sean, who was just freaking amazing, the crew chief, I told him, well, we did 7.5 Gs. I didn't puke, and here's the bags.
All right, so there, everyone heads down to the right. You ready for it, Harley? Yeah. All right, here we go. Ready, hit it. Coming left. There you go. Another breath. All right, rolling out. Keep those legs nice and tight for me. There we go. Perfect. Nice job. Thank you.
I think one of the better moves, or just more in I don't want to say more enjoyable, but funner was, the last one where we do the carrier pass. So we came right up the runway, and there's a crowd out there. And I remember that Lieutenant Commander Zimmerman asked me, he goes, all right, we got one more we can do, and we're going to do this carrier pass. You want 5, 6, or 7 Gs? And I kind of regret saying it now. I was like, I guess I'll do the 6. And he goes, okay, yeah, no problem. And we come in over the runway, and we held this turn for, I think I counted it out, for probably 8 seconds. And it was strange. I'll have to go back into this as well. That one was easy to maintain for me. And there's an explanation behind it. But when we came out of it, I said, well, how many Gs we do there? He goes, yeah, we got up to about 7. So, that was my appreciation for him. And really something that kind of stood out was, that's what they're about, is really pushing people to get your full potential. And I have a lot of respect that he did the flight he did with me, because obviously I was able to pull it off, I guess you would say. Like I was able to do the maneuvers, do the Gs, not get sick. The biggest thing I learned too was there was a 6.5 G, I think we did, like in the middle of this flight. And that one, it was strange. It was like, wow, I was like, that was a good one. That was like no brainer. And he said, if you get on top of these Gs, meaning like you dig in good from the beginning, like you'll breeze through them so much easier than if you get behind the G and you have to fight your way back. You're going to work like 2 times as hard, 3 times as hard. And I couldn't help to envision, like, when they say who's the better pilot, to me, what I gathered out of the experience is, the skill of flying the airplane, but more who physically can endure longer and take these Gs. Like if you got a guy who can sustain Gs at this level for 5 seconds and this guy's rocking it at 8 seconds, well, that guy's probably going to come out on top, and that's why they look the way they do. They even told me on the ground, the crew chiefs, like, these guys are ultimately in the shape of professional athletes, and that's what you have to be, to really be the best, or to, I keep going back to, it's really the physical aspect plays such a part in the role to me of what it takes to be such a good pilot.
Yeah, it's you mentioned your carrier break there at the end. That's another video I saw, and that's what really solidified that you're made of something different, my friend. Because I've seen people do that. I've watched a lot of backseat videos, and people are grunting and making all sorts of noises. You were so even keeled in that pass. I've never seen anyone take that the way that you did. So it's interesting you call that out. So you touched down on the ground, man, and then. You got some special people waiting for you. Your sister was there, your mother was there, your wife was there, and I think I saw I think you even mentioned it, but Boss Armatas and some others came out to greet you when you landed.
Yes. The whole team came out to greet me, which was just exceptional. Basically they opened that canopy. Lieutenant Commander Zimmerman came back. You'll see in the video, took a selfie. Thanked him. There's a lot of parts when we get the whole flight footage that he does bring up my dad on the landing and more of the performance and a lot of very, very like heart touching things. Complete respect for him. But ultimately when we landed, he came back, we did a handshake. He did a quick selfie. Crew chief comes up, Sean, who I love, just amazing. Just really amazing individual. And, told him how it went down. He seemed genuinely happy. I know Erica mentioned that she really thought Lieutenant Commander Zimmerman was really pleased with the flight, which I was happy about. That's something that really I wanted to happen. You know, I didn't want this to be something cheesy for him or just not a great experience. You know, I'm just really happy that like I reacted the way I did.
You know, I was going to ask you if at any point you had a significant moment of reflection. I know there's been times when I've been around the team and I feel this moment of reflection with my own grandfather, but it sounds like you, the whole time you were having this moment of reflection, and it's clear in the way that you're sharing your stories and just relaying the experience back to your father and acknowledging just how great the team is today.
Yeah, you know, naturally kind of the way I approached it, it's a good point. Like you brought it up that there was a goal here for me of how I envisioned the flight, and it very much wasn't about me, Harley, getting a flight to me. In fact, I wanted that to be the least of the aspects of the day, you know, of like what it meant. So that's really something that I concentrated on for like the month before. You know, I've told multiple people I'm kind of just more, I mean, it may sound shouldn't sound bad, but more of a pawn in the grander scheme of like what this day is supposed to be. You know, I'm strictly there as a representation of my father, and that's how I treated it. And the effort put into the flight, you know, that's probably why it had that outcome, along with just probably some luck of genetics as well. You know, I've yet to even tell anybody this. You know, I haven't told my wife. I did have like a really weird experience where after everything was said and done, we went and watched the air show. And I think it was at the very end where the diamond was pretty low and they were pretty far out and they were headed out kind of over the water. And there was really kind of that picturesque, like orange California sky. And you could still see like their smoke and they were heading out into the horizon. And I got this really, really strange feeling over me where it was almost like it was a calming effect, and somebody was telling me like, you know, it's like things are done and it's okay to kind of let go a little bit of kind of some of the harder aspects of, you know, what it's been like to kind of grow up this way. And it almost felt like a little bit of closure to me. It you know, naturally kind of emotional, but it was very strange. It was almost like, you know, some feeling that my father was sending down, like it's time to let some of it go and kind of keep going with your life and always remember, but not hold on to so much pain.
That's beautiful, man. And I have no doubt that he was looking down, smiling, and really proud of you on Friday. And yeah. I know so many people are proud of you after it went public on Facebook. The Blue Angels made that post. My phone blew up, you know, just because they know how much, you know, I talk about your dad and love your dad. And so I'm sure I can only imagine just your phone has been ringing off the hook ever since.
Yeah, you know, the thing is I barely told anybody. Like I'll start to reveal it a little more. I've always been I've never wanted to draw that attention. Like I would love to tell the story, but I never wanted to come off as attention for myself. So through my life, like I've been very, very careful. Like I've known people I have a college roommate that I was around for 5 years, had no idea, you know, and he's just kind of finding out through Facebook posts and whatnot. And it's hard, you know, I still ask my question why I kind of do that. And I think I don't ever want anybody to think that I'm trying to get that attention for myself. So it's a very hard thing for me to juggle, to be able to make sure the message is being understood in the right way. I've seen a couple times in the past where it's been a little different, where some people that, you know, I definitely know, but aren't like super close, like I've told, and it's strange. They'll look at you in a different way. And to me, it's a little confusing because, you know, it's very important for everybody to remember that, you know, those accomplishments were strictly my father's. Like those were not my accomplishments, you know. And sometimes I've seen, like, you know, there'll be a different reaction, and that's just not the case. You know, I don't know what it is about that maybe I'm just not understanding correctly or whatnot. But the older I get, especially, you know, in the last 8 years, I definitely have been more open about it. I think it's a good thing for me, like mentally, to be able to like talk about this a little more. But yeah, so I think at my work, like I told my boss, and I have told maybe 2 other people, but it's always the same message. Hey, look, like, don't tell anybody about this. Like, I don't want like a lot of people knowing, like, as far as like whatever, all the social media, like that's totally fine. You know, I think it just comes down to a paranoia thing with me, of it not wanting to come off like I'm bragging about something. So I'm a little more reserved about it. If it comes from somewhere else, then that's totally has a different effect. Like that's totally fine with me.
Yeah. Well, let's wrap it up. I'd love to, if you're open to it, maybe have both you and your sister back on and talk a little bit more about your dad and your experience, if you guys would be open to that. No pressure, of course. But,
sure.
You know, I love you. I love your family. You guys have been so kind to me over the years. And I still fondly recall the beautiful experience that you and Erica curated for me when I came down to Santa Barbara to visit. And man, I'm looking forward to hanging out again real soon.
Yeah, of course. Hey, I have one more thing, Ryan. Let's bring in Erica, since she initiated the flight.
Yeah, I mean, she's co-producing this.
Yeah. Erica, you want to come in? This is my favorite part.
Well, she's the cinematographer for this episode, so a lot of the footage you see in this episode is courtesy of Erica.
Yeah, she's definitely the one that has reached out and made a lot of this possible. So, you know, a lot of the thanks goes to her as well.
Yeah, well,
thank
you, Erica. Yeah, well, thank you for all your help in producing the episode and all the great photography and pictures that I got to live vicariously through you, and watching you take some of those G's like a pro.
Yeah, I was, like I said, definitely happy about it. You know, I hope it's very entertaining.